fears mount in the West over a major military escalation in Ukraine, the United States, for one, is preparing for talks with Russia. The talks could start within weeks, and the announcement follows accusations from Western powers, who have blamed Moscow for continuing a major troop build-up on the border with Ukraine. According to a U.S. official, the U.S. is now ready to engage in diplomacy as soon as early January, both bilateral and through multiple channels. The official further asserted that any dialogue must be based on reciprocity, which means that the U.S. also has its concerns that will be put on the table. The Kremlin, meanwhile, has grown increasingly insistent that the West and NATO are encroaching dangerously close to Russia's borders. Tensions have peaked this week when Putin vowed to take retaliatory military steps in response to what he called the West's aggressive stance. Moscow presented the West with sweeping security demands last week. Russia asked NATO to not admit new members and bar the United States from establishing new bases in former Soviet countries. Now the Russian president has called Washington's willingness to discuss security proposals positive. The U.S. is yet to agree to a time and place for these talks, or fresh talks with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, that is. The West and Ukraine have accused Russia of weighing a fresh attack on its southern neighbor as soon as next month. Russia is bolstering its defenses against Ukrainian government forces. In recent weeks, the Russian mercenaries have been deployed to separatist-controlled eastern Ukraine. The Kremlin, meanwhile, however, denies all connections, and with previous Russian military contractors too. Moscow has moved tens of thousands of regular troops to staging posts closer to Ukraine, that is, and it has also demanded urgent security guarantees from the West. Russia wants to prevent Ukraine and other neighboring countries from being used as a base to attack it. Amid rising tensions, the British Foreign Secretary Liz Truss repeated her warning to Russia. She said that any incursion into Ukraine would be a costly mistake. But she has now welcomed Moscow's willingness to enter such talks. Germany and France have called on both sides to respect the restoration of a full ceasefire in eastern Ukraine. In a joint statement, the foreign ministries urged the two sides to continue discussions on further steps in the humanitarian arena. Earlier today, we spoke to our correspondent Stuart Smith from Moscow. Listen into what he had to say on the story.
NATO, the Western military alliance, says that there is nobody apart from NATO members who can veto other countries joining. So the first thing NATO says is that Russia has no say in this. Russia is not a signatory to the membership of the alliance, and so has no right to decide who and who does not join. And NATO has, even since President Putin started making these very clear demands, has reaffirmed once again that membership to Ukraine remains open if it fulfills NATO criteria. And so at the moment, NATO seems very supportive of Ukraine, that it could still join, so could other countries, and there's no sense at all that NATO is willing to back down on this one. And the problem with that is basically President Putin's number one concern. So how do you start negotiations when the main objective of one side has almost already been ruled out? It'll be interesting to see what the US and NATO come up with.
WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.